Serious, men of Reddit, what uncommon red flags in men should women be on the lookout for? When I worked at KFC, there was a girl whose boyfriend would stay parked outside the door during her entire shift. That is not something I've seen commonly, and it's a huge red flag. Damn, I wish I had that much free time in my life. As someone who had so much free time it can get boring quickly, depend for each person though. I have little discipline and constantly working on it. If he is a jerk to your friends or other people, but can also be excessively charming. Edit, Jesus, I was not expecting this to blow up like this. Thanks. All my sister's asshole boyfriends, he is sweet when we are alone. I've heard guys say they do this on purpose. If they act much nicer when they are alone, she thinks she changes them, or makes them a better person. Apparently it's wildly attractive to certain types of women. Dudes who try to humiliate other dudes in front of women. Also, related, dudes who backstab and talk shit about other dudes to look better in front of women. Or slightly related again, guys who are just joking, or trying to be funny, while putting others down. Schrodinger's douchebag, they mean what they say, but will quickly say it was a joke if their opinion isn't shared. Currently living with one of those, but he just uses the joke fallback for everything. Sometimes he'll say something rude and then immediately say I'm joking as if it's not obvious. Only saying that to avoid a reaction out of me. Apologies for the personal story, but I've needed to tell someone that. My 8-year-old does that. But it's like, I want to eat the frosting out of the jar. Just kidding. Your guy sounds worse. My 14-year-old daughter started doing the just kidding thing as well, and I couldn't get her to stop. She would say things like she's going to spend the night at a friend's, who happens to be a guy, at like 10:30 p.m. on a Wednesday. Or like it was said earlier. When she gets the opposite reaction that she wanted. She tried pulling that shit with Grandma one time and hasn't done it since. Grandma wasn't mad but just really disappointed in her for thinking that was something to be just kidding about. I don't even remember what she said to Grandma, but that shit stopped right then and there. Grandma sighs and says first name, middle name, last name out loud. That's enough to start feeling ashamed of oneself. That's how the world works. Grandmas run the universe. They're the real deep state. An organization as deep as Grandma's love for their grandchildren. Inability to apologize. And not really apologizing. I'm sorry you felt I was doing X but I wasn't. Yeah, that's not really an apology. For sure. I've experienced everything from super contrived apologies to literal refusal to admit fault in talking to friends of mine. Everyone needs therapy. Angry drunk. Also angry drunk who insists on driving while drunk. Edit, thanks for the award and likes. The most I've had. For anyone following along, I wrote this initially thinking of an ex I had who was a very angry drunk. One night he decided I was awful and picked me up to put me in a car he was planning to drive while completely shit-faced. We were in the country, on a pretty isolated area. His family was nearby, but not close, and when I began to scream for help, he laughed like a bad guy in a movie and said, "Nobody can hear you scream." Listen, I don't remember how the hell I ended up talking him out of driving me anywhere, I just know that I stayed with this person long afterwards. Please do not be like me. It makes my hair stand up just thinking about this, so we'll add one more thing to the comment, someone who threatens to harm you and laugh about it when you show fear. Drunk or sober. And yes, I stayed with him for months afterwards. Abuse is a hell of a drug. Stay safe. That's not really one that should require special attention to catch though, tbh. Someone who can't accept your accomplishments. Don't be with someone who feels the need to compete with you or can't accept that you've accomplished your goals. My wife is a doctor, I'm a ducking idiot. I asked her what made her want to marry me. She said, "You took time to praise my accomplishments and made me feel important all while struggling yourself." Edit, I've never had this many upvotes before. I can't thank everyone enough. Someone who is unable to joke about themselves. A big caveat here is people who aren't willing to joke about themselves versus people who don't quite get how to do that, but are willing and fail at it. Like for example, I'm bald and fail at relationships. So, there's, it's hot in here. Am I right? Nobody ever stays with me. Not even my hair. Low Uber passenger ratings. Haha, I think that is a great unbiased snapshot of how someone is. Because you're being judged by every driver, so it's an average of how the world sees you, I guess. Depends. I got hit with a super low score on Uber from one of the first rides I did, an uneventful ride all things considered. But since I only had a few other 5-star ratings, it dropped my average super hard. And once you have a low score, drivers don't really want to pick you up unless they themselves have a low score. It's like Uber LOL. So anyways, I use Lyft where my score is immaculate. I got a low rating from a driver because I live in a major city, but I had to request an Uber out to the suburbs, about 15 miles 24 km to a friend's house. The driver complained the whole way there about how we were driving so far out of town and he wouldn't be able to get any rides that far away, and it was ruining his work day. I tipped him well because I knew it was annoying for him. Then he dropped us off and gave me a 1-star rating. Can't you choose to not accept the trip if it sucks that much? Yes. I've had drivers explain to me though that they don't get to see the destination until they accept the trip, just net miles, and I think it ducks with their metrics to cancel. Drivers still should have canceled though. I had a driver refuse to let me in when he found out where we were going, downtown Dallas from the airport during rush hour. He told me to cancel and just drove off. I had to complain to Uber to get the cancel fee refunded. The heck does he think happens when you pick someone up from an airport? It's not as if everyone's staying living 15 minutes from an international travel hub. Temper and inability to control it. Edit. A decent amount of comments have come my way to suggest that temper is not uncommon. I'd say that's largely true. Everyone gets angry sometimes. The distinction is in the inability to control it. I found out a few years in that my partner was unable to control their temper, and by then I have a ring and a house. In hindsight, the inability to control one's temper is a good thing to look out for and know before committing, as it can be a lifelong issue to deal with. I've not known many people that can't keep it together enough to not punch holes in drywall or whatnot, so I generally lean on the side of most functional people can control their tempers appropriately. Also, if a guy loses control sometimes, keep track of who he loses control around. Is he doing it around his boss and other people with power over him? Or just you and people he thinks don't matter? This is a huge one. My future ex-husband excuses having treated me like shit because he can't control his temper due to his abused childhood, but he controlled it fine around other people, just not me. I always categorized him as a good person because he was nice to people who weren't me. When I was assessing his treatment of people, I forgot to count myself as a person. My dad was the same way. Ultimate doormat in the streets, uncontrollable temper due to brain damage behind closed doors. When I was assessing his treatment of people, I forgot to count myself as a person. Oof, so many women need to read this frown. Wow. Yes, this got me. My last relationship was abusive, and this so beautifully captures the thought process of my past self. If you have to defend him with a phrase like, oh, but when Hess just with me, it's different, or but you don't see him when he is nice who he is when Hess at his worst is still the guy you're datenganned if all your friends see or hear about is the worst. It's not something they aren't seeing, it's something you aren't recognizing. My sister is dating a guy who is a complete jackass. I spoke to her about it before and she uses those exact words and even said she can handle the emotional abuse he does to her. I wish she would finally open her eyes at it. Also wanted to add that my sister's BF is abusive towards their dog, she really is just dodging all the red flags at it too. Also wanted to add that my sister tries to justify his behavior cause he has a mom that doesn't care for him and he lost his dad at a young age. Yikes, I have a friend in a pretty similar situation. The guy is a massive creep, but she says stuff like you just don't understand, you've only seen that side of him and you don't see how great he is to me. In my experience, you aren't going to be able to change their mind no matter what you say or what evidence you provide. And if you push too hard you'll just strain your own relationship with her. Immediately shutting down when you try to discuss anything deep or potentially problematic in the relationship.